Hello, everyone from different parts of the world. My name is John, founder and CEO of Sendbird. Today, we're going to talk about building human-to-human connections at infinite scale. We're going to talk about three different topics here. One is the ubiquitous digital interactions that we're seeing across the world. And second is building real connections within the digital world. And the third is scaling really from two people's conversations to billions of people's conversations. Before we start, just to give a quick introduction about who we are, what we do. Sendbird, we provide chat, voice, and video APIs for your application so that you can build user-to-user interactions within your application to get your apps socially connected. It's actually a billboard we have in San Francisco. A little bit about our company. Today, we power over 110 million monthly active chat users that have conversations through our platform, sending billions of messages. We actually have close to 250 full-time employees across 7 different cities across the world, and half of our team is in R&D, building the best-in-class chat. And we have raised $120 million to date. And last round, our Series B, $100 million Series B was led by Iconic Capital and Tiger Global Management. So let's go into Chapter 1, Ubiquitous Digital Interactions. Today, we live in the world powered by digital interactions. Roughly 5 billion people across the world use messaging app every month through WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, WeChat, and similar messaging apps to stay connected. And chat, voice, and video is not just limited to teenagers and millennials. It's for every age group uses messaging apps, and not only for social interactions, but also for business interactions as well. And you may not notice, but messaging apps have the highest engagement among all app categories. 3 out of the top 4 mobile applications ranked by highest total session time spent in 2019 were all messaging applications. And then obviously the coronavirus has accelerated the adoption of this trend. And messaging is really transforming our expectations across a couple of different vectors. One is really building the connections, bringing people together digitally, especially when we can't really be in person. No sound. Hope the sound is working. And second is convenience. Because when you're having a messaging experience, you can have experience in real time as well as asynchronous interactions. So users can interact at their own terms. And lastly is the live engagement. You might have attended some of these virtual conferences, live concerts. We are starting to see a lot of these different brands and a massive scale audience engaging with the brands digitally as well. And across different industries too, we are seeing a complete explosion of marketplaces, especially in the pandemic, and especially in Shopify's case too. 2020 Q3, they've grown more than doubled year over year, and we're powering conversations across different marketplaces and on-demand services like Delivery Hero, Traveloka, and so forth. So we're really seeing this massive explosion of digital interactions, especially coming from marketplaces. And healthcare, 40x growth in US alone. We're powering a lot of the conversation for publicly traded healthcare companies. We're seeing this telemedicine, telehealth conversations really taking off this year. And lastly, online communities. Reddit saw 1 million plus users sign up in 2 weeks after the pandemic started. And we're seeing this massive explosion in communities as well. So these digital interactions are really changing industries quite a bit. So how to sum this up is roughly, again, 5 billion people on planet Earth use chat, voice, and video on a daily basis. And because these interactions can be done synchronously or asynchronously, the users are in control. They can control the communication at their own pace. And then lastly, different industries have been rapidly increasing user engagement and driving conversions by really enabling digital interactions. Chapter 2, building real connections. These are some couple of live examples that we work with different partners across the world. Schibsted is one of the largest online classified groups in the world. They're based out of Norway, headquartered in Norway. They have about 50 different consumer brands like classifieds and marketplaces under their umbrella. And we've been partnering with them to power a conversation between the buyers and the sellers. So what's really important is we can think of it this way. When you walk into a store in your local neighborhood, you build a relationship with the seller, the store owner. And once you have the relationship, you actually become a repeat customer buying frequently. That's exactly kind of what's happening on the marketplaces today. By enabling this conversation, instead of like things like SMS or email, by having this rich interaction right within the applications, buyers are able to build real connections with the sellers and become repeat purchasers. And also behind the scene, ships that uses things like moderation capabilities to really build this safe space where people feel like they can build trust and there's not going to be things like scamming, so that people can actually drive up the conversions as well as become repeat customers. Second is Livongo. Again, I'm sure some of the people in the audience might have used things like talking to coaches or doctors while we're in pandemic. Livongo is a chronic health management company that recently announced the acquisition or merger with Teladoc, a publicly traded company in New York Stock Exchange, at $18.5 billion, a massive acquisition. And we've seen this kind of trend explode everywhere. Is to really connect coaches to the patients, as well as doctors to patients, doctors and nurses and so forth. This kind of telemedicine, digital healthcare space has completely exploded this year. And on top of that, what Livongo has done really well was to integrate their third-party CRM system along with the messaging experience, so the coaches can have a full context about their patients without asking a ton of questions right away, so that they can provide a very, very tailored and personalized healthcare experience. Reddit, obviously, everyone probably knows, is the world's largest online community. They have hundreds of millions of people that hang out on their platform. So if you have a conversation on Reddit today, their version 1 used to be things like, almost look like a commenting system, but now the modern messaging experience that's been powered by Sendbird, if you go have a conversation, whether it be one-on-one or a small group chat, you can have a conversation or messaging experience that's very modern and also very tailored to Reddit's theme. So you can kind of share subreddits, do upvotes, downvotes, all within the messaging experience, as well as sharing custom emojis. So this kind of rich interactions has contributed a lot to their monthly retention. So we're really happy to power the online communities at Reddit. And lastly, but not least, Hinge. So Hinge, as you might know, is one of the most popular dating apps here in the United States, and we've been partnering with them for the past couple of years. And now, since the COVID has happened, a lot of people, simply could not meet. Singles out there have to meet even when there's a pandemic. So how do we do that? Is by enabling voice calling and video dating. So now people can have a dating experience, whether through audio or video. And actually, we believe this kind of experience will sustain even after pandemic, because it's a really safe and convenient way to, kind of have the interaction with someone else digitally first. And once you feel like you're really building the rapport and relationship, you can actually choose to go out and meet in real life as well. So these kind of relationship becoming digital is the kind of the mega trend we've been seeing, especially accelerating this year. So to kind of sum it up, like we've seen the category leaders are very proactively exploring and leading the way in delivering the new experiences, especially like healthcare, online communities, marketplaces, and so forth. And chat, voice, and video are becoming foundational layer to user interactions or mobile application. And I love this quote, like social distancing does not mean emotional distancing. Digital interactions directly increase relationship between users, increase level of trust, engagement, conversion, and really ultimately, improve things like patient outcomes for healthcare customers. So we're really saving lives. And chapter 3, scaling from 2 people's conversations to billions. These are kind of the partners that we've been partnering with across different verticals, whether it be healthcare, marketplaces, on-demand services like food delivery. I'm sure everyone here in the audience is ordering food probably a couple of times a week. And also online communities, whether it be like Reddit, fantasy sports, IPL, if you care about crickets, it's one of the most largest sports communities in the world, Patreon, and so forth. So we've been really trying to power the user-to-user communications across massive, consumer brands. And then I think really the key here is not just to enable these features, right? Like chat, voice calling, video calling, these are just essentials, but making sure that the infrastructure is scalable, reliable, it works. And then lastly, it's secure, especially if you're dealing with things like healthcare. Obviously, the reliability has to be there to have doctors talk to patients, but also the conversation has to be very, very secure. So we power these kind of, we've been powering these kind of communication channels with these values in mind. And then to really, see this is we've been powering these customers from different parts of the world. And this is not just a trend that's happening only in the United States or things like some parts of Asia. We're seeing this everywhere. We have globally distributed data centers in 8 different multi-tenant regions, as well as dozens of private regions. We are seeing this kind of digital interaction trends pick up in the last couple of years, quite rapidly. So making sure that your infrastructure, when you're kind of building this experience yourself too, is to making sure that you can have your users from different parts of the world have those interactions seamlessly. And to kind of show the glimpse of what's happening underneath the hood, right? So the value drivers obviously are, we're really trying to create a connected and interactive experience, really manage the user's life cycle from their onboarding to their engagement to retention to monetization, really from end to end can be enabled through digital interactions. And a lot of this experience has to be fully customized for your own user experience. Every app is different, and you want some of your own apps, themes, brands, features all be represented within the messaging experience. And lastly, it really truly has to be mobile first. We're seeing probably 90% plus of our interaction coming from mobile devices, although we do have a web version, and it has to work across iOS, Android, and web in perfect sync. So those are the value drivers. But underneath the hood, as developers, you have to really think about building the use cases for user-to-user, group communication. If you're doing live events, making sure you can handle the scale of live streaming, and then really build the front-end user experience and UI to power all of those things, whether it be, again, one-on-one chat, live streaming, use cases, building out offline messaging features when you have spotty internet connectivity, all sorts of things. And really, ultimately, the backend is where a lot of this magic happens, is making sure that you don't have to take care of any of these complexities. Service like Sendbird can help you with the serverless backend, where you don't have to take care of the servers. And also, really, ultimately, is to give you that data and the insight back to you, so that you can improve your user experience through ownership of the data, pulling out the data when it's needed, and all of the conversations get all integrated into a single user identity. So you don't have to implement 3 different ways to power 3 different conversations. All those conversations get all tied to a single user identity, so that you can build a very seamless experience for your users. So that's kind of it. So to sum it up again, when you're really trying to power real-time interactions, you need to make sure your infrastructure is reliable, secure, and scalable. And as developer and as an engineer myself, the new way to build software is through APIs. We've been building software, and we actually used a ton of different third-party APIs as well to power our own application. Is to build using APIs to save your precious development resources, reduce business risks, and I guess ultimately the capital. And these kind of digital interactions API really enables you to go to market much, much, much faster. And you're not simply trying to release a feature, you want the best-in-class user experience. Because what you're dealing with is your end users' expectations. And when they're using things like WhatsApp, Facebook, Telegram every single day, you can't release a feature that's subpar to that. So you want to have something that's as comparable, if not better. And then ultimately, these things will help you deliver business outcomes. So that's a quick wrap. I think we kind of went through the slides a little bit quickly, but I'm open to taking questions.
Thanks a million, John. Yeah, we have a few questions in, and we have a lot of people in the audience here, people from San Francisco, from Brazil, from Poland. We have people from Google, UBS, Siemens, Nosh in Portugal. So we'll kick off with one of the questions here. We have 3 or 4 questions. So the first one comes from Wayne. What are Sendbird's policy on safeguarding the chat messages? Are they encrypted, and where is the data stored?
Yeah, this is a wonderful question. So we actually have a dedicated team called Trust and Safety that really focus on the processes as well as technologies to safeguard the data. So right now, all of the messages are obviously being encrypted in transit as well as at rest. And then also customers can add any kind of extra layers of encryption on top of it. And we also have invested in things like ISO 27001, 27001, SOC 2 Type 2, HIPAA compliance, all those things to really increase the overall protection of the data. So it resides on the cloud, and we also have a multi-tenant cloud. But for customers who are a little bit more security aware or needs extra layer of security for whatever their internal compliance is, we also offer what we call a dedicated private clusters, where their customer data only resides in those servers, and people with the limited access will have access to the database, and then only through that checks through all the compliances can actually have access to them. So internally, it's very tightly safeguarded. And again, the data is a customer, so it really is up to the customers how they want to safeguard guard those data and according to their own policies as well.
Fantastic. I'll pull up another question here. And this one is from Waruna in Sri Lanka. So thank you for joining us tonight. What kind of protocol did you use for real-time chatting? And can you talk a little bit or maybe give examples of serverless architecture?
Yeah, without getting too technical, so we use WebSockets for peer-to-peer, user connection between the client side as well as between the servers. And then we've actually built our custom protocols to make those interactions a little bit more efficient. We've looked at some of the publicly available ones, but through our years of experience, we thought we can make it a little bit more efficient. So we kind of done that. And then from the server architecture perspective, we actually we believe our configuration and the way we kind of architect the servers are kind of our secret sauce, but the actual techs that we use are pretty simple. We sit on top of AWS, and then we use things like Redis for caching, or a database for the persistent storage. We use Python to glue things together. On the front end, we have what we call an edge server, which is actually the socket servers that connect to your client in real time, as well as we have API servers that you can kind of call in a RESTful way. And then you can really decide whether you want to rely completely on our server and just interact through APIs, or you can actually build some level of server on your end and then have a lot of communication that happens between the servers to increase the level of security and scrutiny on how you deal with data as well. So it's really up to you. And we are SDK and API company, so giving you the power of the flexibility and how you want to build your experience is kind of our value proposition.
Fantastic. Moving from nighttime in Sri Lanka to mid-afternoon in Canada, a question here from Jean-Paul. Do you allow or initiate marketing messages through the chats?
Yep. We do have a couple of specialized APIs for sending massive bulk targeted messages. We call it announcement API. It's one of our premium features. So you can actually create different segments of customers and send them through APIs. It's not intended to run massive marketing campaigns, but we are seeing more and more of our customers utilizing this announcement API to really have this kind of marketing message being pushed out. So we're actually learning from our customers and building with our customers to solve their problems. So the quick answer is yes. So you can have those marketing messages being sent out.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, John. And thank you for the question, Jean-Paul. Another interesting question here from Ashley. So Ashley is joining us from the United States. Thanks for this question, Ashley. What are your thoughts about integrating animated avatars to generate more social presence in chatbots with customers and alongside digital interactions?
Wow, that's kind of next level thinking. So we are starting to see a lot of our customers creating stickers, emojis, GIFs, keyboards as part of the user experience, and animated avatars, like something that we've seen on Animoji from Apple and things like that. That's kind of the next level thinking. But we've seen these kind of rich and also tailored experience for your messaging definitely drives up engagement. And even in business context, people actually, not everyone, I guess, but people actually, the overall engagement of the interactions increase when you kind of add this kind of special experiences. So we highly recommend it. There are a couple of third-party vendors out there for Give keyboards, but for animated avatars, it would be very curious to learn if there's any really good vendors that we can actually partner with.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. We still have questions coming in, so we'll continue on. From the United States, we go to Mexico. And this question is from Anja. Would you recommend using Sendbird, I imagine, for apps, or can it also be used website-based only? So maybe it's a question about kind of the user experience that you and the team have seen.
Yeah, so we currently support all of the major platforms, iOS, Android, web, as well as some of the gaming platforms like Unity and a few other engines coming out pretty soon. But recommendation is obviously to use wherever your users are. If your users are mostly interacting on your web property, we certainly recommend building on top of the website. But ultimately, what you want to create is the cross-platform experience. So whichever platform they use, you want those conversations to stay and those interactions and the relationship to stay there. So we can kind of enable that. But yeah, you can certainly use it for only websites.
Fantastic. So that question was a little bit about the user experience and the platform experience. Our next question is a bit more focused on kind of market segmentation and industry segmentation. So Deborah, who is joining us from Brazil, thanks for joining us, Deborah, and thanks for submitting a question to John and Senbert here. She asks, from all your customers, do you have any in the education field? And I guess we can expand that as well in terms of what sort of fields we see the platform being used in most, or any sort of recommendations around that.
Yeah, actually, I'll stop sharing screen. But yes, we certainly have been partnering with the education companies. We have a couple of publicly traded companies as well as universities using us, especially in the kind of the digital online education space, connecting teachers or tutors to students and creating also community for students as well. So we do have, we've also seen some increase of the education customers, especially in the year of pandemic. So we've certainly been part of those conversations.
Great. A quick question that has come in the chat, so it won't pop up on screen. This is a big question. So what is your vision for the future of interaction beyond kind of messaging, video, group chats, etc.? How are we going to be interacting in 5, 10 plus years?
Yeah. So the way we kind of think about this is, why is messaging taking off? It's not because messaging is something that's actually new. If you dial back, decades, if not even centuries, people always wanted to interact with someone as fast as possible. We had Phone Express. We had when the telephony came out, people wanted to have those conversations. And when we had like dial-up modems, I don't know if anyone in the audience remembers things like modems, but you can actually call someone or go on this local network and have chats there. And like message ICQs, MSN. So like this people's need to have real-time interactions has always been there. So it's something actually that will not change as long as we live like human beings. So you kind of, if you kind of extrapolate that, right? Chat, voice, and video is just to add more richness to the interactions. And of course, things like whether it be sending voice memos, video recording, all those things also increase the level of engagement and quality of interactions as well. And then if you think about kind of the really far out, like 5, 10 years, let's say a world of VR, and I'm kind of personally very bullish on VR, people will certainly meet in virtual worlds through, hopefully advancement in hardware like, Oculus Quest 2 can kind of help us have a glimpse of that. We will have more of these interactions. And what's really missing, to give an example of what's currently missing today, when you have a dialogue with your loved ones or someone you're dating or your friend or family member, when you get into a fight over chat, what do? You're like, okay, let's take this offline, and you call them. You have a video call with them, or actually grab coffee with them in the pre-COVID days. Then a lot of things kind of get sorted out. So what we're kind of really missing is those nonverbal cues, and those nonverbal cues can certainly become digitized someday, whether through video calling or through VR. So we want to facilitate a way to capture some of these nonverbal cues and nonverbal communication digitally as well. So even small things like emojis can actually certainly help those things. So our kind of really vision is to really completely digitize a lot of these interactions and hopefully take it one step further, enable interactions that was physically impossible in offline world. Again, being able to send 3D photos, 3D videos, and have this kind of like tactile interactions over digitally. A lot of these things cannot be done offline. We want to enable even those things too in the future.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we still have an audience here. We still have questions coming in. We're talking about the future of messaging and conflict resolution. So we're going deep. Let's talk a little bit about the features here. We have a question from Jessica. And Jessica asks, any special features or techniques you can recommend to developers managing specifically larger groups?
Yeah, this is an expertise we've been building for years. Like, how do you actually? We work with a lot with live event, live streaming customers, as well as gaming communities, and again, massive communities like Reddit, is to be able to handle massive audience in a single chat room. And some people in the audience might have experienced this while watching Twitch stream. When you have a lot of people into a single kind of group, single chat room, it's really hard to follow the conversation, especially when there's like a live sports event going on. So what we do, one of the features that we have is called dynamic partitioning. Is we smartly kind of start to segment out the audience behind the scene. So kind of put them in the bucket so the total level of engagement kind of stays similar per bucket. And when the overall, user number of users decrease or the engagement level decreases, you kind of remerge them into single channels. So the level of engagement kind of stay the same because people cannot keep up with 20, 30 messages being popped on the screen per second, but people can certainly manage 2 to 5 messages per second. So how do we kind of segment that in a smart way and again remerge them in a smart way is kind of one of our secret sauce for managing massively large scale groups. The other thing is like moderating, right? When you have a lot of people, there certainly will be content that's could be inappropriate. So adding things like profanity filters. We also have a in-house our moderation tools that developers can kind of jump in and deactivate bad actors, freeze the channels, mute them, ban them, do all sorts of things. So creating a good quality, high signal to noise ratio in this group conversation is also could be quite important.
Fantastic, fantastic. We're going to talk a little bit about the work from home, the 2020 environment here with the next question from Colum in Ireland. Obviously, this has been an exceptional year. Sendbird are kind of on the forefront of messaging and engagement. What's changed for you guys in 2020 and how are things shaping up for 2021?
Yeah, I mean, our company, fortunately, we're in a position where we could, I don't say benefit, but obviously certain sector of our customers have been impacted negatively by coronavirus. But some of our customer base has been impacted or grew massively during this pandemic, like food delivery space has completely exploded. Digital healthcare, educational online communities, dating, all these kind of sectors have actually grown faster during this kind of a strange year. Now, with that said, obviously we as a company have adapted quite rapidly. So a lot of our own employees have been working very remote settings. They've been traveling around different parts of the country, and we're seeing more employees joining from different parts of the world too. So that certainly has changed, and a lot of our internal kind of might be a little bit going too deep here, but our kind of benefits program has completely shifted to we're now thinking more about taking care of the mental wellness, actually overall well-being of the employees by buying things like Modern Health, better up to support the people during this pandemic through mental wellness programs as well as coaching. So that certainly has changed it. But overall, we've grown quite a bit this year, so we're quite grateful for that.
Fantastic. I think we have one more question in here, and it's a bit of an RKO. It's from Christian in Chile. Is email dead for notifications under this new messenger era? So, John, what are your thoughts on the future of email?
If you want a sexy headline, we'll say SMS and email's dead. But truth be told, I don't think these kind of channels will die. If you look at any kind of media in the past, right, like whether it be CDs or DVDs or even like cassette tapes, they still kind of hang around, but they've become kind of pretty hobbyist. So it really is a shift in terms of the overall market share. What we are seeing from our own customer is that the default mode of communication are starting to shift a little bit. Before, email used to be the big thing. Now email still is being used quite a bit for business purposes, but for interactions with sellers or when you're on a dating app, you probably don't use email. Or if you're chatting on Reddit, probably email's not the thing that you want to use. So emails, kind of the where email or SMS used to be the default, are now become the fallback options. If you have a conversation on Airbnb today, right now by default, you're interacting with the host via chat. But if those things don't get through, then you might get an SMS or email as an alert, like to your point, like notification. So we're starting to see email and SMS becoming more of that background notification or the fallback option rather than the default mode of communication. So we're starting to see this big shift there.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. We actually have another few things in the comment section here. Demetrius says, email never dies, which I believe is a quote from Game of Thrones. Jelena says, hello there. Hello there, Jelena. My team and I are running an outdoor event booking platform as a marketplace. Could you explain how Sendbird would be working for event producers and event consumers?
There are a couple of ways. It really depends on the scale and also the urgency, especially for events. A lot of the conversation has to be in real time. So you probably will be creating whether it be cluster or groups for your event participants, and then allow them to have those conversations. I probably need to know a little bit more specific around what kind of outdoor events you're doing. Running outdoor event booking platform, it's marketplace. Yeah, but it really depends on the scale. And then also if you're having, is it a more of a kind of a unilateral kind of equal group kind of outdoor event, or if you have someone like a speaker or event or celebrity or influencer kind of being the host or the MC, then you might actually want to create an experience where a celebrity can kind of broadcast into those groups, and the audience can consume them, but not necessarily chat back, but can have separate private conversations. And you can implement all of those experiences using things like Sendbird. So it's really up to you to how to design them. But one thing that we've seen, again, from live events is that when you kind of add this kind of experience, the retention rate goes up and people's average session times gets longer. So people will end up staying on the platform longer and hopefully get a little bit more engaged.
That's perfect. And I think that's the last question we've had. So we've covered a lot of ground there, John, and thanks a million for your time. I know Jessica from the team has posted a competition, which I've pinned to the chat there. Any final words for the day?
No, I mean, this has been great. Thank you for having us. And yeah, I mean, we're all in this together in this pandemic. So let's get through this strong. And then hopefully it's fun building this kind of connections in the digital world, which is kind of our mission. So
yeah, for sure. Exciting times. And for all the audience that are still here, obviously you can connect with Sendbird across the 3 days on the event platform through partners or explore. And there is a competition being run there, which has been pinned to the chat. But thanks everyone for joining from all around the world, seemingly amazing. Sri Lanka, Chile, Brazil, Poland, San Francisco. Enjoy the rest of the event, and do be sure to connect with John, the team, and Sendbird over the 3 days. And I wish you all the best, and thank you for joining.
Yep. Thank you, folks.